Hey folks, Chef Sarah here with the Food Commonwealth, where wellness is the new black. So psyched to be back with you. So, holidays are approaching. Since we are in this COVID life, I imagine that many of you are going to be cooking Thanksgiving dinner at home, or at least in a smaller sort of construction than you're used to or have had in the past. So today, I want to share a few of my favorite Thanksgiving belly yum yums. I want to talk about where we can cut corners to save time and not jack up the flavor on the finish. I want to share some ideas and some tips about how to get the whole family in that kitchen, get everybody cooking. And then lastly, and probably most importantly for me, how do we savor all of the flavor of our holidays this year and reduce the sugar, the salt, and the fat all at the same time. Today we're going to do a simple herb roasted whole chicken. We're going to do a pan stuffing. That's going to be a blend of some dried breadcrumbs and some cornbread. We're going to do a simple salad with some roasted beets, some winter greens, and some persimmons. We're going to do some collard greens. Quick, fast saute on the stove in 15 minutes. We're going to finish that up with a homemade cranberry sauce. When I was a kid, my granny had that Mikasa crystal lead tray that would sit on the center of the table, and the whole can of cranberry sauce would just slide out on it. We're gonna do something a little bit different, and a great way to get your kids involved is kind of like making jam. And then we're gonna talk about mashed potatoes, which is my daughter's favorite thing on the plate. And we're gonna do that in a vegan style that hopefully will not make you forget any of those delicious, sort of more heavy cholesterol laden favorites. All right, hang with us. We'll be back in a minute and we'll get started cooking. We're gonna start off with the bird. So if you're doing a turkey or a chicken or a duck, I recommend doing a brine, which helps on the front end to sort of ensure that you're gonna have a moist finish. I remember those overnight turkeys when I was a kid, like all the preparation, putting a pound of butter or margarine underneath the jacket, doing all of this stuff, boiling it first and then roasting it, just to ensure that the bird was moist on the finish. Here we're gonna just do something really simple. We have a cup of sugar and a half, I keep saying that backwards. A brine is 4 quarts of water, 1 gallon of water, to 1 cup of salt and a half cup of sugar. That is your basic measurement. The easy way to get that done is to have a saucepan going with some boiling water. That's gonna help your sugar and salt dissolve really quickly. I'm gonna get that in there. Then I have a container that already has 4 quarts of water, minus what's in that saucepan in here. And then what I'm gonna add to this water are all of the things that I wanna use to season my brine. I've got some Thai basil. I'm gonna throw that in there. So this is lemon verbena. Will it swim or will it sink? I've got some cilantro. I'm gonna put that in there. My daughter had dumplings this morning for breakfast and made too much soy sauce. It has a little bit of sesame oil, soy sauce, and ginger in there. I'm gonna add all that in there so I don't lose it, right? And that's it, right? I've got the sugar and salt water in here. I've got some green onions that I know I'm not gonna use the tops of later for the stuffing. And just like if I was gonna make stock for this chicken soup, I'm gonna just cut those off and throw those in there. Now I'm gonna swing back over here. My water should be boiling rapidly. I'm gonna Swiss off. I'm gonna get all of this sugar and salt whisked in. Now keep in mind, salt has 3 primary purposes, right? To preserve, to tenderize, and to flavor. In this case, what we want it to do is we want it to tenderize and flavor, right? What that sugar is gonna do is it's gonna help the flesh of that bird stay hydrated. That's almost all dissolved. Let me keep whisking. You'll notice that I have my chicken. I took the butcher paper that my chicken came in, and I folded it inside out and I put that on top of my cutting board. I have a lot happening here. I don't want to have to take this entire table apart and re-clean it. But I do want to be mindful that if this chicken were to drain or drip, it had a space to catch that. I'm still gonna do a full top cleaning just to make sure if anything touched any of the surfaces, but this will ensure that none of my chicken juices dribbled on anything, right? And that's really important when your kids are cooking with you. You don't want to get all that cross-contamination happening. That blood and the bacteria that this chicken gives off will very quickly grow into salmonella. And with everything happening, we don't need any more bacteria just roaming around the house on door handles and seals. And that's just a simple way to do that. It's also really important to make sure that the sugar and salt dissolves, because it won't in this cold water. I'm gonna put this back on the stove for a hot minute because I still have some crystals in the bottom. I'm gonna take my bird. This is completely up to you, but because this is a holiday bird, and whatever drippings that this bird yields, I'm gonna wanna use that for my gravy. I am not going to remove any of this fat, right? That fat that comes inside the cavity, I'm gonna let that stay in this bird and cook off slowly during the roasting process. And then that way I have those natural drippings in the bottom of that pan to make my gravy stock, right? No need to then go out and purchase another jar or another can of gravy. All right, I'm gonna get this bird in here. As you can see, right, that 4 cups of water totally absorbs that. If you're saying, okay, well, I don't have one of these fancy containers, I don't have all that, don't worry about it, right? A Ziploc bag will do the trick. Jumbo bags, Ziploc makes them, First Street makes them. Heck, my point, you can go get a big bag. It works the same way, except for you put the chicken in the bag first. See how that water caught right there on that paper, right? I'm going to get the rest of my water where my sugar and salt has dissolved. Now, if I didn't trust that the water in here was cold enough to manage this hot water, I wouldn't be pouring that in there, because that would change the temperature of your chicken, and you don't want to do that. But because it was really cold water to begin with, that warm water didn't do much at all. This is a 2-gallon Ziploc bag. It is 4 gallons of water, 1 cup of salt, a 1/2 cup of sugar, and whatever other spices you like. Make sure that bag is sealed. Right, and there's our brine bag. We're gonna get that in the fridge. We're gonna wipe it clean, get it in the fridge, and let it stay in the fridge for 12 to 24 hours. Okay, so I put a bird up last night, and the bird that I put up last night just sort of had a lot of lemon, rosemary, and thyme in it. I'm gonna just show you what it looks like on the finish. You wanna get it out of the brine. Again, I'm trying not to completely soil the surface, so I'm gonna use this bowl. I'm gonna put some paper towel in the bottom, because what I really wanna do is just dry it off, right? I'm going to add some paprika and some olive oil. Just some basic paprika. It comes in sweet, it comes in smoked, it comes in bittersweet. Now, if you like the bird with the pretty finishes, you can totally take things like parsley leaves. And again, this is one of those great things to do with your kids. Let me show you. Let me just get this oil on here. It's important to make sure that the whole bird is coated with that paprika oil, right? And then again, if you like those really pretty finishes, I'm just gonna grab some of this thyme, parsley right here. And this is a great thing, again, if you have kids who are not like flesh phobic, taking this flour and placing it underneath the chicken. What that'll do when the bird is cooked is you'll have these really gorgeous imprints on your chicken, and people will think you've gone to like some really fancy gourmet market and paid some money to do that, right? Rosemary is great. It makes these really long shreds, slices of lemon. Then I'm gonna take my bird and I'm gonna put it on a roasting pan. I'm gonna make sure that it's covered. We're gonna pop this chicken into a 400-degree oven. We're gonna let it cook for 15 minutes on 400, and then we're gonna drop that temperature down to a 325-degree oven and let it cook for another half hour. All right, now that our bird is in the oven, the next big holiday item, at least in our household, is the stuffing. So here are my shortcuts. Go to the market and buy some breadcrumbs. Where the secret lies, and where I don't cut any corners, is making some cornbread. Take a minute, make whatever your favorite cornbread is, and then this is when you get the kids in the kitchen. And what's great about it is you get this perfectly cool thing, and what kid does not want to go into a cake and do this? Exactly. And what you're gonna do is just that. And you're gonna let them crumble it and crumble it and crumble it until it's just like breadcrumbs. It's literally like cornbread breadcrumbs, right? Make sure you get all of these like crunchy corners. That's what takes a lot of time, right? You want to get all that in there. Once you've got a good chunk of it done, you want to start moving it over here into your bread mixture, right? And then what you want to do is once your chicken comes out of the oven, you'll have something in the bottom of the pan that looks like that, right? That's just some natural chicken stock and fat. I take that with celery, onion, garlic, chopped up, with some water, and create my own broth. And that's this, with some sage and some thyme, and we use that to hydrate our stuffing. Right? It's gonna have to sit in there a minute in order for it to soften up. But once it gets all soft, it looks just like that. And then you can adjust it, right? So to this one, I'm gonna add a little bit more cornbread. I'm gonna use a fork to stir it, right? Because we wanna keep it fluffy. Right? Now when we were kids, stuffing your Thanksgiving turkey was a huge thing. So once we got our stuffing to this consistency, we would then allow it to stuff it in the turkey. The turkey would roast, and then that would be our dinner. But we have learned over time that that is not the most healthy thing to do. So we bake it on the side, right? I'm gonna just take this pan, I'm gonna oil it a little bit with olive oil. Pan spray would work, a little bit of Earth Balance or something like that, any of the butter alternatives. Right, we're gonna get our stuffing in there. And then we're gonna pop that stuffing into a 350-degree oven for just about 15 minutes. It's already done, right? There's nothing in it that's uncooked. The bread is cooked, the cornbread is cooked. All we wanted to do now is to form that nice kind of crunchy, like solid thing so we can cut it off, put it with our turkey or our chicken, put it right next to that cranberry sauce and eat it up. See you in a minute. Mashed potatoes. So here's the thing, all of the nutrients are in the skin, or the majority of the nutrients are in the skin. The least expensive potatoes come in a bag like this, and they're dirty as all get out, right? Who wants to scrub the potato? Who wants to sit there and wash the potato? So how do we do both? How do we save money? How do we keep all the nutritional value of a potato in our bellies and not tossed in the garbage or in the compost? And get our kids in the kitchen and have a great time. I got one for you. Basic science class. Baking soda and white vinegar. Remember those explosions that used to happen? What happens if we just take some regular old dirty Idaho potatoes? Nothing against the Idaho potato, but you know, they're dirty. Nobody wants to scrub that, right? Look at my hands. What if we put them in a bowl? And you don't need a lot, like maybe a tablespoon or two, just a little bit of baking soda, Sprinkle each of those potatoes with just a little bit of baking soda. See, I didn't even use all that I took out of the pot. We're gonna take some vinegar, just like a drop, and we're gonna pour it on there, all right? And we're gonna watch it explode. We're gonna add some warm water. I have some over here in my kettle already warmed up. And look at that. Watch the water turn brown. The dirt's off the potato. Now we just rinse it in clear water. We chop them up and we cook them. We have some perfectly clean potatoes. All right, let's get them cut up. Add it over here to this pot. And we'll come back and get those mashed up. All right, so let's talk about greens. One of the amazing things about being here in East Oakland, particularly being this close to the Castlemont Farm and Garden, is that they've got at least 4 varieties of collard greens growing right now. And I am loving these purple tree collards. They're really light. The color is amazing. Look at that amazing rich purple stem that's through there. Makes it a lot more fun to get the kids in the kitchen when the food is pretty. So I always say we're gonna make the purple greens, right? And what makes them purple is we've got the purple collards that have this amazing purple undertone. We're gonna add in some purple Thai basil in that. We're gonna add in some ginger, some sage, some fennel, and some coriander seeds. All right, let's talk about that a little bit. When I was a kid, my mom's greens, I did not eat. I did not like them. They were mushy, they were soggy, they were spicy, and if you left them in the refrigerator, they would have this like crown of fat that would congeal across the top. Just not appealing by any stretch of the imagination. And again, it wasn't until I met someone who actually taught me how they ate greens. It was a friend of mine from Kenya, and what they do is they strip the greens, or at least what their family does. They strip the green from the stem. We have a small bunch, so I'm just going to do all of this quick and fast. And again, this is a great way of getting your kids involved. It takes a minute to perfect this technique, and it's a little bit frustrating. And if you have more than one kid, it's a great way to create a little bit of competition, right? Divide the bunch into half and see who can destem them the fastest, and then create a little prize. Maybe somebody gets a popsicle, or somebody gets, something that they wouldn't normally get for winning. But make it fun. And it's also a great way to encourage them to eat the vegetable when it's done cooking, if they were involved in the process to get it done. All right, so we have those greens destemmed. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna chop up my stems separately from the actual collard greens. Now, my granny would call this process seasoning your pot, right? And what that meant is that you would get all of your aromatics into the pot and let them do a saute and get all that flavor in before you put in the last part, being the actual leaf of the green, which didn't need to cook that long, right? That was also another really great technique to learn how to reduce the fat in cooking greens. Knowing that the stem cooks longer than the leaf, I could preserve the rich color of the stem and all of that like beautiful like texture, and not have it go to like that wilty greenish brownish stuff, and have it cook away all the nutrients, right? The stem has a lot of the nutrients. The stem is bitter and harder. Makes sense to cook that first. It also substitutes for that bacon, that smoked turkey, that fatback, that ham hock, or whatever else used to go in that pot when I was a kid. So here are my trade secrets, right? I have some fennel seeds and a cayenne pepper in my skillet, right? I have some sage leaves, which I'm gonna give, I was going to try and rip them, but they're a little tough, so I'm gonna give them a chop. I'm gonna get that sage, that fennel, that cayenne in my pot, along with 2 other really important things. Some smoked paprika, which I have right here. And I will give them a shout out. Trader Joe's makes this $2 bottle of smoked salt. Best bargain I've seen in a while. All right. Now, if you work at Trader Joe's and you see this video, I want a discount. All right. So we got that smoked salt in there. We're gonna get our smoked paprika in there, and then we're gonna put it on the stove and let it cook until we can smell it. Measurements. Okay, so this is a bunch of greens. It was probably 12 stems. We went in with a teaspoon of fennel seeds, about 6 to 8 sage leaves, probably 2 teaspoons of the smoked salt, and a teaspoon of smoked paprika. We're gonna put it up there and wait till it smells like magic. In the meantime, we're gonna get our greens chopped up. I like to just stack them all up, roll them like a cigar or a baton, and then chop across that cut. If you do any kind of culinary study or watch a lot of the Food Network, this process is known as a chiffonade, spelled with a C. And it's like Ford, the car. Look it up. The key, again, with cutting anything is to try and keep what you're cutting as even in shape and size as possible. That ensures that the product cooks evenly and that you don't have some greens that are super big and then some that are super small. I'm going to cut these down the middle. That is my confetti of collard greens. All right. I'm going to pull off that Thai basil in here. I got some of it over here. I'm going to put my Thai basil in at 2 points. I'm going to put some in now as I'm cooking it. And then I'm going to turn back and put some in right at the finish. Again, it doesn't matter what herb. It's the herb that you like. If you like thyme and you like rosemary, then use thyme and rosemary. If you like marjoram and oregano, then use marjoram and oregano. Okay, so we're ready to cook these greens. What you can see here in our skillet, you can see the steam coming off of that, right? That's all of that amazing smoky flavoring, right? That's what's happening in there now. Now we're gonna get in some basic things. We've got some onion and some tomato going in there. I'm gonna put in some of this red onion right here. I'm going to make sure my greens go in last, right? Because whatever water is available in those greens, I want that water to come out and steam through. So I've got my onion in there. I'm going to add my garlic from right here. Tomato, leek, fennel seeds, sage leaves. Now, I'm going to add some sea salt. I'm not going to add any pepper because remember I put that cayenne pepper in there in the very beginning. I'm going to wait on the finish to see how spicy that's going to be before I do anything else. But I am going to hit it with some olive oil, probably about 2 tablespoons in total. This bottle only holds a cup of olive oil, which helps me measure out things really well. I also have 2 of my favorite vinegars. Which is elderberry and pomegranate. The secret, in my opinion, and I value my opinion, at least when it comes to cooking these greens, because I'm going to eat them. Value your opinion when it comes to cooking your food, right? You're going to eat it, so do things that you like to make you enjoy your finished product. I like greens that have a little bit of a sweetness on the end, but I don't like adding extra sugar to it, right? My mom and my grandmother would put sugar in everything. Let's not do that. Vinegar has a lot of amazing finishes that gives you all that delicious caramelized sweetness, but it also gives you some of that probiotic love, and it doesn't give you any of the added like stuff that you get from artificial sugars or adding in additional sugars. The secret to the success is to use 2 kinds of vinegars. If you've got a balsamic, use a balsamic and an apple cider. If you've got a white and a red wine, use those. Just mix them up. Think of it like, again, like a salad or a cocktail. You are building on flavors. I'm just going to swirl it with one of each of these. This one is pomegranate and quince, and this one is elderberry. Mashed potatoes. As I mentioned earlier, this is my kids' favorite dish. But we don't do dairy in our house. So learning how to make mashed potatoes taste good was a major challenge. 3 secrets to success. Treat your dairy-free mashed potatoes or your vegan mashed potatoes with the same amount of love that you treat your full-blooded, like cholesterol, like latent dairy, cheese, butter mashed potatoes. All right, so for ours, we have our potatoes that we boil. Again, I like to keep the jackets on the potatoes, so we call ours smashies. I take 2 ounces. I like to use these scoops. Again, if you work with kids, it just makes it more fun. Little ice cream scoops of butter, of dairy-free cream cheese, and dairy-free sour cream, right? Because my mom would use butter, heavy cream, and milk. So we simulate that with dairy-free sour cream, dairy-free cream cheese, dairy-free butter. And there are a variety of nut milks on the market, and they all have varying degrees of amazingness. When you're cooking food, I prefer to go with the unsweetened milks that are not, that the original flavors that don't have that extra vanilla in them. And I find that the oat milk and the cashew milk are better for things that you would normally use cream for, and that the almond milk and the macadamia milks are better for the things that you would use milk for. Just my own personal preference. So we're going to use some oat milk in here. This is about a cup. I'm going to use half of it to start. And then you can also buy this lightly seasoned roasted garlic now, just like you can buy pre-peeled garlic. I love this stuff, particularly for mashed potatoes and pasta sauce. They come in these pre-packaged. Inside the package, you have smaller pre-packaged inserts. I find that about a half of a pack into 6 potatoes, which is what we have here, is about that ratio. And that's probably about 12 cloves of roasted garlic. There are about 20 to 24 cloves in these little packages. All right, we've got everything in there. If you have a potato masher, that's great. I like using a whisk. Smells great. Smells just like the mashed potatoes I grew up with. Again, not a process that takes hours. I find that if you cut the potato up into pieces before you boil it, that knocks out about 40 minutes of time in the kitchen. And on these days where you're expected to make about 6 or 8 dishes and somehow bake a bird, most people generally have one oven. All right, so you guys always hear me talk about the Castlemont Farm and Garden. It's because it's in the backyard, and it's right across the parking lot from Lotus Bloom, Room to Bloom. Anyway, one of the things that's growing, or that was in our farm box this week, were these amazing beets, and they were super tiny, just like that, which allowed me to roast them whole. Right, so you can see I literally tossed them in this aluminum foil. I drizzled some olive oil on top. I closed them up. I let them roast for about 30 minutes. And what that allows me to do is to literally just pull off the jackets with my fingers. Again, a great activity for little ones. It's fun and it dyes your fingers red. Never gets old, people. Food dye never gets old. All right, we're gonna get that all peeled off. And then we're gonna make a simple salsa of sorts. We're gonna take these beets, these persimmons. We're gonna toss them with a little bit of red onion, some salt, and some pepper, and some dried lemon verbena, right? And that's gonna be our salad. And then we're gonna get that everything plated up, right? That's our turkey with our stuffing, except for our turkey is a chicken today. So we have our chicken with our stuffing, our mashed potatoes, we have our sauteed collard greens, we have our persimmon and beet salad. Hang with me for a minute and let's get that all plated up and see what it looks like. All right, Lotus Bloom family, here is our Thanksgiving precept for our meal. We've got our roasted bird here, our stuffing, our mashed potatoes, our beet and persimmon salad, our sauteed collard greens, and our cranberry, blueberry, and mango sauce. Have a great, healthy holidays. You can feel free to email me if you have questions about this, Chef Sarah at thefoodcommonweal.com. You got thefoodcommonweal.com, it's there.